I'll just introduce us here. I'm Larissa Hall, and this is Esteban Lopez, and
Hi.
we're going to debate today. The topic of our debate is we've identified three ethical issues for students and educators concerning using the internet on college campuses today, and as it relates to future employment. Um, Together, we've come up with the top three issues that students and educators are facing. Number one is academic integrity as a habit, and I'll just read a brief description of what that is. Academic integrity or dishonesty as a habit developed well before a person enters college, and the role of educators in promoting or discouraging these habits as the student takes on his or her academic and professional careers. Do we agree?
Um, well, yeah, I wanted to talk about that as far as academic integrity. A lot of students don't have a background with integrity, and when they come into a university setting, they're sort of at a loss. And with that said, I also wanted to mention that the university policy might be different from the teacher's policy.
Sure.
In some cases, some instructors will allow the use of a calculator in class, and so that can't be ruled out as sort of well, not dealing with academic integrity. I wanted to throw out there too that nowadays, like, students are really tech savvy, and easy bib. I'm from an older generation, and there was no. My degree is I have a BA in English literature, and at that time there was no easy bib. So I had to do all my MLA formats by myself. But nowadays it's just a matter of like time. Students can do their work much faster and much more accurate too.
Okay, so you're saying that it's just in terms of academic integrity as a habit, it's just something that students have to deal with, and it's an issue that really isn't, if I'm understanding you correctly, is not the role of the educator or the institution. Where, as I see it, that yes, students have developed this lifetime of habits, and yes, once they enter college, it's not like they automatically think that it's a good idea to start cheating or throwing.
Yeah, correct.
Exactly. But I think that in terms of creating a positive role in their lives, it's really important for educators to take an active stance in really discouraging negative habits and promoting positive ones, because this not only prepares them for the careers that they're eventually going to achieve once they get out of school, and really the main reason why they're in an academic setting, higher education, is to prepare them for this, but also because as these habits are developed, because these students, current students, are living in a digital age where they have had immediate access to information, and really it's overwhelming to them. And I think that the solution is really in having teachers and administration in the universities taking on an active role to teach students how to parse this information, how to get the right information.
I wanted to argue that too. When you say educators, it's sort of a broad term, but with the onset of information technology with media and whatnot, I think that also instructors need to be more proactive in telling their students that, okay, you can go out onto the internet and you can find this information, but you need to be able to cite it. And that should be sort of a part of the class. At least one session should be dedicated to informing students of what is and what is not possible. At this point, it's like some instructors don't want to deal with that and only reprimand students when they come back and it's like, well, I know this is not your information, but you have no work cited. So it's a little too late. So that. I mean, from the beginning, I think that should be brought up in class.
So that was our second agreement in terms of issues facing students and educators. So we both agreed that university and classroom policies for online academic integrity for students, it's really developing the importance of understanding and following policies now as a precursor to complying with policies in their future workplace, and then for educators preparing students for policies in the workplace. So a lot of what we've discussed in our first issue of academic integrity as a habit really can be solved by developing strong university and classroom policies.
Right. That across the board. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So again, I keep going back to this idea of students nowadays as digital natives, these people who have grown up with so much access to information. And so the role of a successful academic integrity policy, specifically relating to online activities, is to really bring the administration and faculty and all of the students together to establish a campus-wide policy. And with that, we really need to articulate this digital culture that students are living in and prepare them for the greater expectations that an employer might have for them someday.
Yeah, I could almost say that maybe there's a disconnect. As I said, I'm an older person. The way that I access information or research or data is probably the way that most instructors still sort of access information and data. Well, and then with this, as you said, younger generation digital natives, they come in and they access data and research and whatnot in a different way. A lot of my research entailed students being unaware that grabbing information from the internet requires a works cited page, or even that because it's public information, or they get information from a website where there's no author. They're like, well, it's public information. Everyone knows this. It's on the net. It's out there. So I don't need to cite anyone or anything.
Yeah, and yes, so I mean that really goes back to the fact that students just don't know what to do with all of this information that's in their face every single day, and they're not necessarily choosing the best information to prove a point. And what the classroom policy has to do specifically, because there's a broader university policy that could kind of set a blueprint for what an academic policy in a classroom needs to be. And so the classroom policies need to be based on specific, so if it's a specific assignment, if it's really what the requirements are within the classroom. And as part of that, I really think it's important that that the faculty really build into, regardless of what the topic is of the course and the discipline they're covering, but try to build into that active academic integrity and ethics issues. So within the core curriculum, I think that can be a really positive thing.
Whose job is it to define that then? Is it are you saying the university as a whole, or each individual instructor?
So what I see is that the university as a whole creates kind of a basic blueprint for academic integrity, and we'll get into our last point of honor codes and kind of setting a basic ethical principle for.
Yeah, before we do that, I'd actually like to talk about maybe collaboration. What about collaborative work?
Sure.
Because a lot of the information that's out there on the internet, it's I mean, you're not supposed to cite Wikipedia, but Wikipedia is sort of a collaborative work, and it's a lot of people working towards the same end, towards the same goal. And a lot could be said for that too, where in a company it's they emphasize it's better to work together as a group or as a whole, the ability to work with a group within a group and whatnot.
Sure. I think that again with collaboration is a great thing. Excuse me. And then there's things such as hybrid classrooms, so classrooms that operate online and offline. So I think it really comes down to, on an assignment-by-assignment basis, that the faculty really needs to enforce what their expectations are for students in offline and online collaborations. Now, there's really no way to police that. It's easy enough to say, put your cell phone away when we're in class.
But again, if we're living in a digital age, it's also the faculty's job to be proactive, and I believe there's several software out there that can actually, check whether work has been plagiarized or not. So I also believe it's also up to the faculty to, be more thorough with students' assignments and whatnot.
Yeah, so with plagiarism software, yes, that software does find the connections between text that's on the web and text that a student has submitted. There's a weird algorithm that they put through to find these combinations. But yes, it's really up to the faculty to be the last step in defining whether or not something is an original thought or an original idea that a student has submitted. And really, with faculty, a big focus needs to be the fact that a lot of the faculty are more senior in their fields, went to school during a different time, during a pre-internet era, and I almost think that it would be a good policy in place with the university to put faculty through a how to be a student course in this modern age.
I agree. Yes,
yeah.
I agree.
They have no idea what is available to students, and how can they again police that if they don't know the field.
Excellent point. Yes.
So do you want to move on to the last one, or I know we need to talk a little bit about the ethical approaches, and I've kind of scattered them in on my conversation, but so as we look just through academic integrity as the habit and as these classroom policies that we're developing, so I really thought that academic integrity as a habit really, if you instill in your students a good policy for academic integrity, you're really reaching out towards the common good approach that really creates a common good in the community for everyone. So just wanted to point that out there. And then I know with the classroom policies, really in developing them and in doing that in coordination with student voice, that it creates a really fair and honest and open policy, or a just and right policy.
Yeah, I agree. So as you said earlier, should this come into play, I believe that students should take a prerequisite, in academic integrity. And this, again, should be taught by an instructor that has already gone through the same course himself and learned that this is what's available now. I think the problem is that the internet has just grown so big, and it's so much information out there that no one's ever taken the time in academia to actually create a course that details what academic integrity entails nowadays. So I think that's necessary, very necessary.
So you see an actual course with a core curriculum around academic integrity?
It would actually be a prerequisite. It'd be any university should ask their students to, before you take any other classes or your very first semester, you need to take this academic integrity class, that teaches you how to access online information and how to cite work correctly or whatnot.
Okay. No, that's a good point. So moving on to our final issue, honor codes. And just a brief description here, developing an honor code to create an environment of trust and community within the university setting. So just looking at the affirmative of this, my stance is that when a student enters the university, is accepted to the university, as a part of that mutual agreement between the student and the university, that the student accepts a certain membership and that they are required to hold up a specific honor code of the university as a member of that community. Now this, in relation to the internet, is important because not only are they a community in kind of a real world setting, but they're part of a community in an online setting. And that will ultimately prepare them for another community that they'll eventually be part of, which is their career or employment community. So the reason that honor codes are so important is that they really develop this idea to create a pledge to honesty and to keep cheating, plagiarism, and stealing, all of these things out of the active, out of the university, I guess, culture. And the Center for Academic Integrity actually found that schools that have an active honor code in place reported 23% of a cheating or academic dishonesty, and schools without an active honor code in place had upwards of 45%. So there's actually a lot to be said about having an honor code in place, and that it really creates an open culture of wanting to uphold a certain standard within the university community.
So it's interesting that you bring up these numbers, because I also did some research into what motivates some of these students to actually cheat. I found that maybe 85% of the students cheat because they've got heavy workload and a heavy course load, and so they don't have enough time to actually study for tests or to catch up in class. So it's just easy to go on online and just rip information and put it into their essays. Secondly, I found that about 50% of the students cheat because they're not able to grasp the concepts that are being taught in the classroom. So I also believe that this reflects on the educators themselves. Maybe their classroom is not, or they're not approachable, the instructors, or for some reason they're getting left behind. So at the risk of failing class, it's just easier to go online, grab that information, grab an essay, and turn it in.
Sure. So if we look at academic integrity as kind of a symptom of other things, so what are students dealing with in their daily lives that's making them need to result to cheating and plagiarism? So that's why educators need to have an active role in their students' lives, as much as they can, as much as they can get in front of them in the classroom, or if it's an online course, just let them know that they're available to help them find other solutions beyond having to result to something that's negative. And so with that, I mean, yes, it's putting an extra burden on educators, but this is now the world that we live in, and I think it's if you're teaching one subject, why not push that into a greater realm of how to be a moral and more ethical person, and really create a space for transparency and openness. So yeah, it's an extra burden, but I think it's something that
it's a necessary burden. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. They need to take it on, and what that really that approach to having an honor code really stresses the idea of creating a virtuous community and creating a world that really operates within a utilitarian aspect. So we're creating best overall consequences by creating an honor code, and we're helping students to develop their moral virtues that they'll eventually need to exhibit when they get to their professional careers.
I agree.